Imagine a species of intelligent beings that live secretly among us. Imagine that they often appear humanoid or even human, but possess amazing powers that we lack. They can change their shapes, can fly through the air, and can even render themselves invisible. They watch us, study us, and react to us. Occasionally, they abduct humans and even mate with them, producing hybrid offspring. In today's North American or European cultures, such creatures are discussed in all seriousness by many. They are called aliens or greys. In the Middle East, Africa, and Asia, beings that fit this description are called Jinn. Join us on this episode of The Wandering Crow as we discuss Jinn, genies, and other demon like creatures. Stay tuned.
There is a medicine story that tells of Crow's fascination with her own shadow. She kept looking at it, pecking at it until her shadow woke up and became alive. Then Crow's shadow ate her. Crow is dead Crow now. Join us as we attempt to look through the wandering crow's eye to find the gateway to the supernatural, to seek to know the unknowable mysteries of creation. Welcome to the Wandering Crow podcast.
Hey, murderers, welcome back.
Welcome back.
Welcome back.
That intro was a quote from a book that I purchased called The Legends of the Fire Spirits, Jinn and Genies from Arabia to Zanzibar by an author named Robert Lebling. What'd you guys think of that?
It goes contrary to some of my research, is that they can have romantic relationships and cooperative effort between Jinn and human. So they don't abduct them to have their children always. I'm sure it happens, but what were you going to say?
I was going to say that most Muslims believe that not only is it aliens, but pretty much any topic we discuss on this channel is pretty much a jinn, a spirit, cryptids,
They said, I saw somewhere Dogman, the Yeti.
Dogman, Yeti. Here we go. UAP phenomenon, orbs, spirits, skinwalkers, fae, dogman, wendigo, Sasquatch, all of that are jinn.
And from
in some form or another.
The pre-Islamic Arabia, they believed that jinn were basically what we described as Lilin.
Mm-hmm.
Other dimensional beings that take root in desert areas. It kind of lines up. Like, it's not even just a religious thing. It's a broad category for how they describe these entities from other dimensions.
And some of them, I read another thing too, where they said that these live in a different dimension, almost like the Upside Down from the show that just blanked.
Stranger Things.
Stranger Things, thank you.
That one with the girl that named 11.
There you go.
See, though, and I was really interested in this because it lines up with Skinwalker Ranch, which is so weird.
Because of all the weird phenomenon that happens.
Yeah, almost every phenomena is something that they describe as Jinn-like behavior. It's not in the desert, but they come from this other dimension that we can't really live in, but they can exist in both dimensions. They have supernatural powers that we don't have, but they also lack in other areas that they can't stay here for very long.
So, do you have specific examples of that? Like, what specifically from Skinwalker Ranch?
So, for instance, they said that it seemed to be able to read their minds.
Mm-hmm.
It knew when they were planning something and exactly how to counteract that. So if they set up these new cameras, it would show up in exactly where the blind spot is. It would go around and just mess with them. It wasn't even always malicious. It would just stack a bunch of steer inside of what was it?
Shed.
Inside of its shed. Yeah.
Yeah.
For no reason. Didn't harm them. Just freaked them out and gave the farmer trouble.
Mm-hmm.
You know, little things like that. And then I know in northern cultures they refer to them as the Loki, and then
Which
that became just Loki.
am I
Well,
dealing with?
you're not dealing well.
Dealing with a little low grade nausea right this moment. I'm okay. I'm gonna be okay. We'll get through
Just
it.
mute if you have to puke in your garbage can. It's all good.
I need to make sure I have a garbage can.
So hit record and post on YouTube.
Sorry about that. Okay. I didn't know that
Okay.
about the Loki, that it was like a type of being before it was a specific being.
It is referred to in many different things, like it's kind of interchangeable. Like sometimes it seems like they're speaking about a specific, like Thor's adopted brother, and other times it just seems like it's a random mischievous demigod.
Well, from what I was reading about this, they can be just like mischievous. They could be friendly. They could be evil.
Mm.
And depending on what type or what level, in quotes, they are, depends on their demeanor. I'd like to just go into a quick background. Both Amanda and I found this guy on Reddit who's a Muslim, Oxycrescent, and he kind of gave a really good brief explanation of the origin. A little bit. Like, we don't really know the origin other than they were created by God. But Christians kind of refer to Jinn as demons. So they are one of three intelligent creations of God, the other two being humans and angels. The Jinn were created from smokeless fire. Some suspect this means electricity or other electromagnetic property. Humans were created from clay, carbon, and water. Angels from light or photons. Humans and Jinn enjoy the right to free will, but angels are restricted to the obedience of God. They talk about Lucifer, or I don't know if I can say this right.
Ifrit or Iblis.
Iblis, yeah, that one. So this is an important story of the Jinn because this leads to all the purely evil, or the Shaitan. He was not the original Jinn, but he was the best in worship of God from the Jinn and held the high position due to his devotion. However, when God announced the creation of Adam as his best creation, he grew jealous and arrogant. He felt man was inferior, an inferior creation, and that his worship of God for thousands of years was evidence of that. God, being the creator of everyone and everything, told Lucifer that he had transgressed all limits and would be sent to hell. And he asked for a reprieve before his sentence so that he could prove to him how easily he could cause mankind to be led off the path of worship of God. God granted it to him. The forbidden apple was bitten. Adam and Eve were sent to earth. And we kind of know the Adam and Eve origin story. But and then, if you go into the Christianity, if you go into the Bible, and you go into Moses, and Lucifer, or Satan, was sent to earth to tempt Adam and Eve, to get them to partake of the apple, or the fruit of knowledge of good and evil, basically.
So I have another version of that story. It's basically the same, but basically, like, just like in the story of Job, where the devil challenges God, like, I will turn Job away from you and let me challenge him, and I'll prove to you that he's not as faithful as you think. It was the same sort of thing. Iblis asked God for a chance to give leniency. So, like, okay, so after God gave his judgment, was like, okay, you're cursed, Iblis said, okay, can you please give me leniency until the final day of resurrection? And God gave him this gift and said, okay, fine. Until the day of resurrection, I will provide you some leniency. And then, in an act of insolence, Iblis said that he would lead all of humanity astray. So he not only does he vow this, he swears this by the name of God. And God, very reminiscent of the book of Job, this is all obviously quotes from this book, challenges Iblis to do this. He says, go ahead, lead them astray. They won't. I trust in humanity. They'll continue to follow me. And so Iblis, from that moment on, became Satan and the great adversary to humankind. Like, I'm going to challenge them at every step and tempt them into sin. I don't know if that
I have a
added
different
anything.
kind of challenges that, maybe, or maybe it's just one of the many faces. There was an Arabian poet, Allah Shah. He's said to have gotten his inspiration for his poetry from a friend named Mishal. He further calls him his Jinn brother. So the idea is, if you let these Jinn kind of possess you, they will give you inspiration, they will speak through you, and they will kind of give you hidden knowledge. Like, that's part of the whole Jinn and hidden part, is that they have hidden knowledge. And so they, if you kind of contract with them, if you befriend them, will help you in your writings, philosophy, it says here, leadership, many different things, as long as you know that you can trust that one. Otherwise, it's just regular demonic possession.
I actually have more to add to that, which I think is such an interesting topic, because I didn't realize this before. But JT, I'm pretty sure you're not finished. I feel like there was more you had wanted to say, is like your intro to the Jinn, or were you done?
No, I mean I'm fine.
Oh, okay.
That was a great. I mean, that's the basic intro. So, go ahead.
All right. So Palmyra, also called Tadmor Tudmur, was a trade emporium and a crossroad of people and cultures in ancient times. It was settled by Amorites and Arameans, and then conquered by the Romans in the 1st century. It was then taken by the Arabs in the 7th century and endured until the 16th century. It was influenced by all kinds of other cultures just because of where it was in trade routes. So Phoenicians, Hebrews, Babylonians, Persians, Greeks. It was like in this really great hub. So it was influenced by all of these different cultures. So it had a really interesting and diverse tapestry of like peoples and beliefs in this area. When the Romans seized the city, Palmyra's main temple was said to have been built by King Solomon of the Israelites and had already stood for 2,000 years. Impressive ruins, including temples to Semitic deities such as Baal of the Canaanites, Nabu of Babylon, and the goddess Alat of Arabia, survive to this day. It's said that ancient Jinn reigned in Palmyra as tutelary or guardian deities. So Palmyra's Arabian Jinn gods are often called Genie, which is Gny or Jny, or also called Genaya or Genaye. It's an Aramaic term that some Western scholars have tried to link with the Roman origin of Genie, which is Genii. The singular form of Genii, Genie, is genius, tutelary or household deities. The Genii of Palmyra are indeed similar in function to the Latin Genie, and the resemblance was probably encouraged. Roman Genie protected individuals, families, and places. Even as late as the European Renaissance, the Latin term genius had not taken on its modern meaning of a person endowed with great intellect and creativity. In that time, when we referred to somebody like Leonardo da Vinci as having great genius, his extraordinary accomplishments of artistry and in science were attributed to their genius or their attendant spirit. So the Palmyrean Jinn And the spirits of that time, the genius of that time, it wasn't the individual, it was their guardian spirit that was nudging them along and helping them to come up with these breakthroughs in this science. So it was their genie, their so like the word genie might actually come somewhat from, like, there is, I know you were saying earlier that genie is not the same as Jinn, but there is a little bit of a link, at least in this place called Palmyra, where the Jinn were considered guardian and teaching spirits.
I did see that where, because I was looking up the difference between a Jinn and a genie, and there was a kind of definition or something that I saw where they are linked: Jinn, genie, genius,
Mm.
and they're all linked somehow. I didn't get deeper into that than what you did, but
There was another etymology too for jana.
Yeah, the
What
Arabic
was that?
Jannah. So
I can't
Jannah,
find it now.
so according to, so there's a lot of argument about this. So there are some Western philosophers and archaeologists and what's the other one? Not an archaeologist, but linguists and dang, there's another word. Michael Hartner was one of these, and I can't remember the word for it now. Anyway, so there's all these people arguing about where the word jinn comes from. Well, Eastern scholars and Arabic scholars feel like jinn actually comes from the root Arabic word, which is jana, and that word means hidden or concealed. And that is the name of jinn is hidden from sight. So meaning that because they were banished by God into these islands of earth, they exist separately from us, but on the same plane. They're hidden from our sight. They exist in a plane where we can't actually see them. So that's where that word comes from. So there's a lot of argument about where does the word jinn actually come from. Did that help, Cameron?
Yeah, yeah, because that kind of goes back to what I was saying with the hidden knowledge. Because apparently soothsayers actually used to settle disputes. Well, it's kind of accepted that they allow themselves to be possessed by these jinn. They are more knowledgeable. They're more level-headed. Like if you're a soothsayer, that means you're pretty well in control of your relationship with the jinn, and so they can use you as like a judge type of thing, judge or jury.
What do you mean? What? I lost you there. They can use you as a judge or jury? What do you mean by that?
The communities would use the soothsayer as that.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So they will have a soothsayer sit in and settle disputes between like two villagers or what have you.
let me
And
let
this,
me let me piggyback on that real quick here. So when we talk about the Jinn, they existed before humanity did,
yep.
and they were on the earth, and they were great in numbers, but they couldn't always get along and had great wars among each other and caused all kinds of destruction to the earth. And as a consequence, their populations dwindled, and that's when humanity flourished. So they established their own communities or tribes or small tribes across the remote regions of Earth. Um, so they practice many of the same faiths that we practice, and they have organized societies where they dole out justice, and that's one of the reasons they hardly ever kill humans, because they have their own justice system within their own small tribes, and they're all over the world. They're everywhere. They're just not as great a number as they used to be. So
Interesting.
does that help go along with what Cameron was just saying? Like there's a justice system that Jinn have,
I think
but
so. Yeah.
the one thing that if you do get possessed or you have a problem with the Jinn, you can always call out to God for protection. Once you mention God or Jesus, they'll back off, they'll leave. And that's just part of their justice system or their agreement or
I think
curse or
that's just one
whatever
of
it
their
is.
downfalls of not having a physical form. any kind of spiritual pressure like that kind of drives them out.
Yeah.
Damn it, I can't find it. There is something that actually was promised. Like there's some curse or promise or some spell that actually keeps Jinn. Like there is some agreement that was made that prevents them from harming humans. And they have to be reminded of it at times. So, like, yeah, saying the name of Jesus or reminding them of God can remind them, like, you are actually forbidden. Like, this is actually a crime. Gosh, I can't find it now.
You know, that's interesting. In the Mormon faith, when we talk about the Adam and Eve story and we talk about Lucifer, Satan, when God created Adam, Lucifer said, okay, I'm going to come and possess these bodies you're making for these humans. But God said, you know what, I'm going to make it so that you can do some small damage to them, but they have more power over you. And that's the power, you know, when you speak God's name, they have to back off
Mm-hmm.
what they're doing.
That's very much, yeah.
There's some other tidbits too that are kind of interesting. There's several classes, and this is according to the Muslim guy I found on Reddit. There are several classes of jinn, each with their own degree of indifference or hostility towards human. And us as humans can't see them in their original form. Whatever we see is whatever form they've taken,
Mm-hmm.
and the form they want us to see. It can be a mist, it can be smoke. One of the common types of jinn is called Hin, Hinn. That takes on the shape of a snake, a black wolf-like creature, or other animals. Oh, this was something too. There's a misconception that you often hear that jinn only reside in the Middle East or the Eastern Hemisphere, but they're everywhere. They just go by different names depending on the culture.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Okay, sorry. You know what's interesting is, so I have a couple of books that talked about the different classes of jinn, and one of them had different, like, it's so weird. So in one of the books, it's called Legends of the Fire Spirits, Jinn and Genies from Arabia to Zanzibar. He talks about 5 major categories of jinn. One of them is Jan, which is a collective term referring to the masses of jinn of all types. Another term is called Jinn, Jinn, used to refer to specific individuals, families, or tribes of fire spirits. The Shaitan, which is the children and servants of the chief devil Iblis. Ifrit, they're more powerful than Shaitans, and they're also often very evil. Marid, they're also evil and very powerful. So he only says those 5, but then this other lady, she talks about the Ifrit, the Marid, a kind called the Ghoul, and she says Jhoul, and then she talks about a kind called Vitala, and she's not sure exactly what it means, but they are like a type, like the name was sort of borrowed from Indian and like Vedic traditions. Sila, according to her, is the safest kind of jinn for a human being to work with because they actually tend to be more curious about us than they are malevolent.
Those kind of reminded me of like the druid spirits or the dryad spirits.
Yeah.
A female jinn who are often shapeshifters, and they kind of branch out and kind of live in more places. They're still rare, though.
Yeah. Well, and she says that the Sila are rare, but another place that, and was it this one? That when mankind were separated from the jinn, so God divided the jinn and the humans into 10 parts. 1 part makes up the human race, and the other 9 parts is made up of the jinn. So the jinn were just that much more numerous than human beings, and they're everywhere, all around. They're just invisible to us. And that's how, like, I remember we had discussed, at least maybe offline on one of the previous episodes, we were talking about how some jinn practice Christianity and Islam and like in multiple of the books I was reading, they might even practice Buddhism or, whatever, because they are always there listening. So they have the opportunity to hear these teachings of these religions and can choose to follow those religions if it sounds right to them, which is so crazy to think about. Like, they're just considered so integral and so embedded into the landscape that they're just always there listening, and they can choose our religions. That's how much they're there, is they're just listening to absolutely everything.
I would be interested to hear about one of their religions.
I know, right? But I guess that would mean that they would have to actually talk to us.
You need a soothsayer.
Yeah.
Oh, you talked about ghouls.
Yeah.
I read something about that specific subset, that they cause humans to get lost in deserts or forests, leading to their deaths, which is a possible missing 411 explanation.
Mm-hmm. I don't believe it. I still think it's the little people. Like, we need to know. I reject that notion. That's not it. That's not it.
I just found it interesting how these topics, and Cameron and I were talking about this, just kind of everything we talk about kind of intertwine and come in together, and like, oh my gosh, okay, we've been talking about Bigfoot, we've been talking about Skinwalker Ranch, and now we're talking about Jinn, and then like, oh well, Jinn could be this extraterrestrials.
It solidifies for me that every culture on the planet has dealings with something, to the effect that they've had to create names for it, right? Like, everybody is dealing with something that they don't 100% know what it is, but they've made names. And now at this point, we're sort of not sure what's what anymore, because there are so many different cultural names and perspectives on what these things are. Like, even as I was reading about the Jinn, some of the things that were being said about Jinn, like in one of the books that I was reading, the author, because it's not clear. It's not clear. There's even like a type of Jinn who's very much like Lilith. And it brought me right back to our episode about Lilith and the Lilin.
Mm-hmm.
And how she was particularly interested in bedeviling children and murdering human children. And there were specific like talismans that had to be used to protect kids from her. And like Mesopotamian, like pre-Mesopotamian, like 2,000 years before Christ, these people were dealing with these beings. Some of them, they felt like, were probably tribal deities, like from the nomadic tribes in divided places. And as bigger religions came and sort of took over, they sort of weren't completely not believed anymore. They were sort of cast aside, but still believed in. So they were still there, but they took on these new personas. They were no longer the deity and the protector of the mountain, or the protector of the village. Now they were the devil of the desert, and they were these dangerous spirits, and they had names like the Lord of such and such mountain. Well, in Mongolia, which is super interesting, some of the deities and spirits that the Mongolians have to be very careful about, because they're not necessarily friends, but they can be. It's just, you just have to be really respectful about how you tread your ground. They are often called the Lord of such and such mountain, the Lord of this and whatever stream, the goddess or whatever of such and whatever piece of land that I'm on. It's the spirit of that place. And it really struck me like, man, I wonder if we were able to go back with a crystal ball far enough, if we would see that it's very much the same as like what the Mongolians are doing now with, and the way that they treat these spirits. They're not devils necessarily, but they're not really either human friends either. Like, sometimes they are.
And I like how throughout the centuries, new religions come in and they adapt it to that faith, but it always kind of sticks to, okay, but here's what we know about them. And that part never changes.
Look,
it's like there's actually something there.
There is, yeah.
And it can be this or that, but no, this part stays the same regardless of what faith comes in.
Yeah. Look, God Yahweh is almighty and the God of everything, and we owe all of our allegiance to him, and he'll keep you safe. But also, there's this other creature out there called Iblis, You might want to steer clear of him. He actually is real, and he's sort of the devil. You know, he's a thorn in God's side, and he's still around because God lets him be around,
Yeah.
right? Like God didn't get rid of him because God was just particularly merciful that day. So you just got to be super careful about what you do around that one. Yeah, I think that's hilarious. Like they have to build in these little spots for these spirits to reside in because they can't deny that spirit really is there. That's a good point, Cameron. It's really funny. I feel like I hijacked your point, but
No, that was yeah.
that was really good.
I did find something that when you were looking for like some sort of agreement.
Yeah, I'm very annoyed
Muslims,
I can't find that.
Well, I did kind of find something like that. Muslims believe that witches used certain types of jinn to do seemingly miraculous or malevolent activities for their bidding.
Mm-hmm.
And during the era of the Prophet Solomon, witchcraft magic had become rampant among his civilization, so much so that it became a real nightmare for his people. So to solve this, a covenant was made by him and leaders of the Jinn that they would not interfere with the affairs of mankind. So despite that there's some who do not heed by these terms of that agreement, oftentimes Muslim exorcists will remind the offending Jinn of the agreement made with them.
Yes.
To get them to back off.
That's the one. Where did you find that? Was that in the Oxycrescent post?
That was in the Oxycrescent
post.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Well, even Solomon had a magic ring that he needed to keep the Jinn subservient and totally within his control. Like there was a talisman amulet thing that he needed to have because otherwise they were going to cause havoc and they weren't going to be in his control. It kind of feels a lot to me like trying to tame a great white shark. Like it's a machine of nature, you know, it's going to do what it wants to do, which is not, its goals are not your goals. It just seems really like it would require a lot of hubris to think that you could control a creature like this with the abilities that they have. And actually, there was a quote that we had read, I think in the Lidlin episode. So a lot of times, Jinn are used interchangeably with Lilin, which is used interchangeably with Shedim, which is like a Jewish devil. And there was this quote that I had found. The sages taught 6 statements were said with regard to demons, Shedim. In 3 ways, they are like ministering angels, and in 3 ways, they are like humans. In 3 ways, they are like ministering angels. They have wings like ministering angels, and they fly from one end of the world to the other like ministering angels. And they know what will be in the future like ministering angels. Should it enter your mind that they know this? Not even the angels are privy to the future. Rather, they hear from behind the curtain when God reveals something of the future, like ministering angels. And in 3 ways, they are similar to humans. They eat and drink like humans, they multiply like humans, and they die like humans. 6 statements were said with regard to humans. In 3 ways, they are like ministering angels, and in 3 ways, they are like animals. In 3 ways, they are like ministering angels. They have intelligence like ministering angels, and they walk upright like ministering angels. And they speak in the holy tongue like ministering angels. And this comes from Babylonian Talmud Chagiga 16a on Shedim and others. So I think I recall this. Like there is some power. Like if we hold that the Shedim and the Jinn are sort of interchangeable, which maybe they are. It seemed like in the research that I did, Shedim became applied to the Jinn as just like the Jewish word for Jinn, but it maybe had its own origin originally that is different from Jinn. But so in this instance, we're going to use it as interchangeable. It seemed to me that Jinn were a kind of being, especially if we look back to Lilin and Lilith specifically in that episode we did. She had her own power, which was almost equal to God in some ways, that was separate from the power of the angels. She had free will, and she also knew the true name of God, and that conveyed upon her certain power and certain ability to stand up to God as a kind of equal in some ways. And so too, like the Shedem are able to see behind the veil of reality, and they can know what lies in the future, because in some ways they are above angels, and in other ways they're less than angels. Like it's this funny little mix. So like these three beings, angels, humans, and Jinn or Shedem, kind of coexist and have these different abilities. And when I think about that and what kind of an entity that might be, it really again brings forth like this is something that is like a force of nature. These creatures, these are not, I don't know, like the power that would reside in a creature like that, you know, equal to, maybe subservient in some ways, but greater in others than that of like what we think of as angels. So it really weirds me out when, like, one of these books specifically that I read was specifically about how to bind Jinn to do your bidding, like how to get them in a position where they can make you do what you want them to do. And that like just makes me feel like, ooh, like the ego behind that, to feel like you could actually control a creature like that is
Not to mention, it
crazy.
kind of feels like slavery. If
Yes,
they're equal to us,
exactly.
what right
Thank
do we
you.
have to ensnare them in that way?
And catch them and force them to do things they maybe don't want to do. Yeah, it really grosses me out. And this lady's got some funny stories about how she took one, and she says there's different kinds and there's different ceremonies that you can do, and there's specific days of the week that you have to do them, which is very interesting because that also ties to the Mongolian stuff that I've been learning. Like there's certain days of the month or the week that are more favorable to getting certain results, because that's when, because of Chinese astrology, because of that's when it just simply is. That is like the domain for that day or that piece of the month or whatever. It just is more favorable. Well, she says that there's like 7 kings of the Jinn, and that on different days of the week you can accomplish different things by calling out these specific Jinn. So there's like 7 basic rituals. I think maybe, did we lose JT?
No, I'm here.
Almost looked like you went for a snooze.
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I was getting lost in your words.
Sorry. Too much talking.
Here's an interesting one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Different point.
Yep.
I'm highlighted on something here. Among you are those that are expatriated, and this he explained to mean crossed with Jinn. This was a guy that wrote a book called Hidden Intercourse of Eros and Sexuality in the History of Western Esotericism. That was written in 2008. So he believes that right now, currently, there are thousands among us in our population that are actually hybrids that we may not even know. Born by normal means, but with kind of that access to the otherworldly influence. Not possessed, not a soothsayer, but just kind of across.
I mean, my money's on you being one of those things.
I am.
You're not my real brother. You are. I mean, I believe it. And then there's all of the talk about I don't know, there's so many interesting things that we have yet to unlock in our genetics yet. It's very interesting to think about. I believe it.
By that time, it would just be explained as a simple mutation,
Yeah.
which happens all the time.
All the time, and could be easily explainable. Yeah.
I had a Muslim tell me once that any sort of statue or bowl or pottery or anything, a toy with a face on it, is access to your home for the Jinn.
I think you said this before. You said anything with eyes.
Yeah.
You know what's interesting about that is there is a, like, I can't think of a single shamanic belief that doesn't believe that as well. That you can create, like the shaman would intentionally create a home for a spirit if they wanted to, but you could accidentally invite something into your home if you're not very careful and conscientious about the sorts of things that you let into your home. So like, yeah, like things would have to have a very specific purpose and like set, like this is not, you would have to clear your home all the time because stuff like that could be home for spirits. And actually certain witchcraft traditions will do that on purpose. They'll build spirit homes to like hang in trees and stuff to have more spirits reside on the property. And in return for their little spirit house, I ask that you help protect this property for me, like help defend this home against others that might wish us ill. And so that's kind of like the exchange. Here's a home for you, but this also would become your home. Please, let's work as a community and protect this place. And it would be like a place to like start creating relationships with spirits. That's interesting.
That's interesting because there's also thoughts that fairies are associated with trees or clumps of sacred trees, not unlike the groves of druids. In some parts of Ireland, even today, the fairy faith holds true, and construction will reroute essentially works so as not to disturb a fairy hawthorn and incur the wrath of the gentlefolk. And a Muslim said that this is a Jinn tree association, also prevalent in Eastern lore. Like there are similarities of the fairy lore and the Jinn lore, very similar.
Mm-hmm. Again, I think it's language. I think it's different peoples encountering the same creatures, having to make names for them, and they did. So now we've got all of these different names for all of the same creatures. And I think that there's a level of like types. Like I think there's subspecies and different kinds. And so that's the part that I want to puzzle out. Like Jinn equals Fae, no problem. I'm on board with that. 100%. Yep. But then like when you get down into like ghoul, like this ghoul type of Jinn, the Ghoul, is that house brownie? Is that hobgoblin? Like what is the corresponding type of Fae that might mean the same thing? It's I think that I would like, as we move through and we start to do more of these episodes and we start to get more research behind us, I'd like to start trying to figure that part out, because I have no doubt these are the same creatures. And
Cultural correspondence. Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah. Like, what do we think what is our money on as far as like, okay, Jinn equals Fae. This type of Jinn called the Ghoul equals X. This other type of Fae called the Ifrit equals, maybe it's this, among different cultures. Like what maybe could it be in Mongolia? What maybe is it with the Celts? What maybe is it with the indigenous Native Americans here in where we live? I am very curious to know. I think that if we looked hard enough, we could find them. Like we could figure it out. It's really interesting. And to me, that means that they're there. They're really there, because every human on the planet at different stages of our evolution has come across them. Even to this day, they come across them.
So the question is, what did you see when you were overseas? Did you
Me?
see anything? Yeah.
I had terrible dreams.
Would you say that they like to haunt dreams?
Do you mean when I was in the military or when I was in Turkey with Talat? Because really nothing since I've been, like, nothing really in Turkey.
Because, I mean, Turkey still counts. That's still in the same area of the world, because they say that there's a crossover between Jinn and the Greek genie. So
one of the books I have has stories about Turkish Jinn and like Turkish like things in Turkey. And I know, having talked to Talat, that there is a belief in Jinn there in Turkey, but you don't talk about them. You don't invite them into your life by talking about them. It's just, you don't. And also, everybody everywhere has evil eyes, literally freaking everywhere. Like on their purse, on their shirt, on their necklace, on their bracelet, on their anklet, on their ring. in their car, on their keychain. So like a separate one on their car and then another one on their keychain. They carry them literally everywhere to
You gotta wonder
protect.
if that popularity was triggered by anything.
Yeah, I think so. According to this one, the Legends of the Fire Spirits, all of those things were known. Like the evil eye, actually was designed because it was a repellent against Jinn. Like that, this person asserts that's where the evil eye came from. Let me see if I can find the page where it came from in my notes. 184.
So did it become popular because people just liked the design, or did they
No, they felt
feel like they needed the protection?
it was a powerful amulet that they needed the protection. Another really interesting thing in this book is, as nomads and nomadic people started to integrate with the cities and the suburban areas, it wasn't the nomads and the people living in the wilds who were the most afraid. It was the city dwellers. The people who had developed some sense of separation from the land were the ones who were the most afraid. Like they had lost that connection and lost that knowing of what these spirits actually were. And instead, because they didn't know, all they remembered is that they were powerful beings, developed this really intense fear. And it was the city people who were asking for the protection more so than the nomadic villagers of the wilds. So let me see.
Makes sense.
So I have a story. This comes from a guy on Reddit named Femboy17.
Yeah.
This happened several years ago. He would normally stay at his grandpa's place most of the time, and it was just him, 3 aunts, and his grandparents. He had a friend that lived in the area, and they had a really cool park, kind of forested park, that was just about 10 minutes away from their place. And this guy would usually go there at night because of the ecosystem, because there was a lot of rare birds or animals that you could see at night. So one time he and his friend that lived close by were walking, and they decided to explore this area at night and take the long way to the park. His friend had seen this meme that was posted that you don't walk underneath trees, but this guy, being dumb and didn't really think about it, was walking under trees as they were walking to this park in the middle of the night. It's about 1 a.m. He had watched a YouTube channel called The Merciful Servant, where they taught you about the types of jinns that existed, and they have specific names and types. And so they reached this really old tree that was dead and dry in the middle of nowhere. And he doesn't know why he did this, but he joked with his friend. He said a particular jinn and said the name lives there. And he went forward and said it out loud, said the name of the jinn out loud. At that exact same moment, they heard the most horrific growl that came from above the tree, like right over their heads. That growl is still etched in his ears. It was just like an angry grizzly bear, and it was so loud that it made their ears ring. And so they booked it out of there as fast as they could. They went to his friend's place because it was a little bit closer, and his mom was the only one home. His friend's mom was the only one home, but no, and she wasn't awake. And as soon as they kind of entered into the back door, they just kind of sneaked in because they weren't supposed to be out. They knew his mom was asleep. Everything, there was some yellowish light around, but everything else was pitch black. And the moment they entered, they were walking to his friend's room. They heard heavy breathing coming out of the room to the left.
Oh no!
About 10 feet away from them, as if something huge was breathing really loud. So they sprinted to their room, to his friend's room, and locked it. And the entire night, they just felt like someone was calling their names from outside. Both of them, both their names, someone was calling it from the outside. And they were just freaked out and barely got any sleep. And his friend said that the guy telling the story, he went home, nothing further happened to him. But his friend said that from that time on, he would hear things in his house moving around, and he knew that his mom was asleep during those times. So it was this Jinn that kind of came into their house,
Yikes.
to this guy's house, because they called his name.
Ugh.
So he's saying, if you know the name of a Jinn, don't say it out loud. And don't even bother to find out any names of any Jinns. It's not a good idea.
Sounds about right.
So I thought that was
Totally.
an interesting thing.
You thought I forgot,
Nice.
didn't you?
Nice.
You know, it's crazy. This lady. Okay, hold on. That sounds about right. So this lady has a story about a time that she bound a Jinn. Like, this is the first time that she bound a Jinn to herself. And she did this one where she was trying to like improve her psychic abilities, right? So she bound this specific Jinn, and she says all of the rituals worked, but this one was a bit more off-putting. That was because this particular Jinn really messed with my head. She goes, despite being an occultist for decades, I was not used to the level of paranormal activity I experienced with this particular Jinn. So she talks about like all the different things that she experienced that made her feel like the binding worked. The Jinn was doing what she asked for. And then, which was pretty interesting, like, yes, she had some success. But then she says, okay, so she had success and she's getting the results that she wants. However, every night for about 3 nights, weird things would occur. For one, my dog was terrified. For those 3 nights, she quivered and kept looking into this one corner. Poor girl. I didn't see anything myself, but she was petrified and would run under my desk, shaking like a leaf. This girl is a pit bull, and is generally very brave, but she wasn't for those nights. I'd hear bumps and thuds throughout the night. One night, with several people present, the top shelf of one of my bookcases literally came crashing down, and the books scattered all around the living room. The top shelf is where I keep the smaller books, so it wasn't the weight. On the 3rd night, I had just about enough. I went for a walk with my dog, and when I got back, my statue of the goddess Terra, that is at the base of my bed, was on the floor face down. I didn't witness the fall, but I know it was not on the floor when I left. At this point, I'd had enough, and I rebuked the Jinn and told it to stop doing that. I think she's very lucky because she said it worked. The noises and events stopped. My dog was back to normal. And just so you know, like, she specifically says in the early part of her book, she calls on a very particular type of Jinn because they're a little bit weaker and they're a little bit more okay with people. So you're less likely to have bad effect. But I think this is an example of a Jinn who probably was pissed off that it was caged by her and was acting out, trying to probably get itself released until finally she was like, I rebuke you, and released it. And that's probably, my guess, is what it wanted all along.
And
But
it was
that
just
makes
happy
sense.
enough to leave.
Yeah, it was like, all right, thank God she let me go. And it didn't do any shit to her. But I think it could have, because these wild Jinn, I've heard lots of stories like that where they will get offended by little things and will just start messing with people and wreaking havoc and terrifying people.
So this begs the question, and I don't know that I have an answer to this question, but what is the difference between, we have the Jinn, which is supposedly a whole different creation of God, versus souls or spirits, human souls or spirits? Is there a difference between the two?
Yeah, well,
Well, I believe that according to this, it seems like Jinn have souls.
mm-hmm. I know, JT, that you have kind of a little bit of a different definition of spirit and soul.
Mm-hmm.
I think everything has a spirit, everything has a soul. There's human spirits, or formerly living humans, and there are non-human spirits. And I think Jinn are non-human spirits. Now the question becomes for me, if we take at face value that Jinn are currently alive and just exist in a non-visible spectrum, and they're formless, like they don't have bodies per se, then I think it's safe to say probably these are not deceased like they are still living, like they still currently have their own life and trying to do their own things. But to me, the difference is the humanity versus not humanity. They are still creatures of God, just the same way a dolphin is, or a whale, or a dog, or a human. They're just a different creature of God, a thinking, I think this is important, an analytical thinking creature, with its own opinions and belief systems. I mean, they're capable of having their own religions and following religions according to our writings. So I just think it makes it, to me, that's the difference, is they're just not human and they're not
Here's an
visible.
interesting thing.
So when humans pass on and they're in that other form, or the spiritual form or soul form, whatever you want to call that, do they interact with Jinn? Can they interact with Jinn?
I don't.
Is that a completely different plane? And the interaction that because we were just talking about talking to spirits, and does that cross over to sometimes, we talk about the middle.
Mm-hmm.
You were talking about there's different
middle
planes.
world.
There's the under, there's the middle, then there's the upper. Is the middle sometimes these trickster spirits that we talk about, are those Jinn? Or are they human spirits that are still on that plane, and it's a totally different plane, totally different thing?
I can tell you that there are definitely non-human spirits in the middle world. 100%. They were never human. They were not born into human bodies. There are also deceased human spirits there.
Uh-huh.
Now, the origin of those non-human spirits, I don't feel like I know enough to definitively say. Could they be Jinn? Maybe. I think.
Could they be spirits of Jinn?
I don't know. Maybe. I don't know what happens to Jinn when they die. I imagine that they go to some other afterlife. And in fact, actually, some of the readings that I read talked about Jinn have their own afterlife. And they're sort of like the same but different than human afterlives. Like there is a Jinn heaven and there is a Jinn hell. I interacting with some of the spirits, I have one or two that are not human that I feel I trust a lot. Maybe
So
maybe they are the same type, because I feel like I was able to identify in this Mongolian class I'm taking, when we were talking about Mongolian spirits, I was able to say, okay, this particular spirit that I have a relationship with meets the general description of this Mongolian type of spirit. And I do feel like there is a correlation between this particular kind of Mongolian spirit and some of the Jinn that I'm hearing about. So it's possible. It's possible. I'm still learning.
So if we break that down, and I'm just thinking out loud here, if we break that down, so some of my spirit guides are animals.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not necessarily human.
Correct.
They're animals. And are they just a lesser form and they haven't evolved to human form yet?
I would never describe them as lesser, ever.
Okay.
I will say my teacher here in the Americas has been clear to say they may take the form of animal, but that's probably not their true form. They've taken a form that imparts a lesson to you, that it's easy for you to see, that for some reason resonates with you, that maybe you need to see. Like you need that particular animal and you need the wisdom of that animal, and that's important to you. But that the creature that it is probably not actually the animal itself. And in the Mongolian class, actually, they asked us, we know that in neo-shamanism, a lot of your guides are animals. What do you guys think about that? Are your guides actually animals? And I explained what I felt and what I had been taught, which I think is true. And they agreed with that. They said in Mongolia, yes, the spirits can come as animals and they have like these other forms that they can take, but the spirit itself is very different from the animal. That's just a version of itself. So I think for me, maybe they are animals, because I think everything has a spirit and everything has its wisdom that it's trying to convey. Some message is trying to give, but it is also possibly true that it is some other creature that is presenting itself to you in such a way that you're able to receive the information. So that form might be animal, or for me, it might be a human, or sometimes for me, it's a non-human thing that doesn't necessarily have a form. Some of them are like
Back
that.
to the Jinn, it does say that they can shapeshift. They will
Mm-hmm.
take the form of animals just so it's easier to digest. It's easier for them to approach you rather than looking like a ghoul or some otherworldly spirit. Animal form is just something that they can sort of dispel some of your pre-existing ideas about them.
Yes, I actually have more to add to that. But JT, as far as like understanding the upper world and the lower world are safe places in the, and I don't know enough about Mongolian trance work to say what it is for Mongolia, but in the lineage that I'm taught, upper and lower are safe. There's only certain kinds of entities that can exist there, and they can only be, for lack of a better word, they're good. They don't mean you harm. They're not going to hurt you either because you accidentally offended or otherwise. They're very forgiving, and they're there for your protection. They're there for you to get better. It is in the middle world where you have to be very careful about your interactions. To my knowledge, all spirits can, to some degree, change their form, and they can appear in ways that are not true to what they actually are. And that's why it's very important to be careful in vetting. So, like when you're in a journey, if you're for sure in lower or upper world, you're safe. But if there's any middle world bleed, then you need to be very careful about who you're interacting with and the sorts of information you're giving and information you're receiving and other energy that you might be giving or receiving. And especially if you're purposely doing a middle world journey, you have really got to be on your game, and you have to really understand that you cannot necessarily trust at face value anything that you're seeing in the middle world.
So that brings me to another question too. And this kind of brings up more religion discussion. Like you go to the Hinduism, and they talk about the karma. Like you go through multiple different lives um, to become a better version of yourself, or a better version. So, like you can start out as a snail, and you're learning something as a snail. Once that life's over, you can, if you were a good snail, I I mean, I don't know how you'd be a good snail, but you could then become a bird or a lizard or some other animal, and then to a point to where you progress to become from an animal spirit, you become human, and based on your where you were born
in
in
the
the world,
in the caste system.
in the system, then you
Yeah.
can progress. So to me, like that, like when God created, so in the religious beliefs that I grew up in, God created the spirits from intelligences. Like they were already intelligent of a way. So the spirit of a tree was already an intelligence,
Mm-hmm.
and God created the spirit of that tree. But and then maybe, with these other types of religious beliefs, that spirit tree can eventually progress to become a human spirit. Does that make sense? Or does that, I mean,
That's a
and
way
so
of believing. It's
it's
not
a
what I
way of
believe.
believing.
Yeah.
I mean,
To
I'm just kind of trying to throw things out there a little bit, and just kind of asking questions of, okay, so then how does that relate to Jinn? If what they say about the Jinn is all these weird things that we experience, they don't really specify spirits, but they specify more specific things like cryptids or fae or extraterrestrials are those Jinn, not necessarily human spirits.
Hmm. I think to your first thought, I don't personally subscribe to that, um, there's something about that levelistic way of thinking that everything below you is subservient to you in some way, is less than you in some way. Who am I to judge that a snail is less than I am in this form? Like, to me, I don't know, there's something about that bothers me. I think they're all equal expressions of the same life force. Like, I think, like, one of the ways of looking at it that we've talked about in my group is there's one singular entity that we might maybe call God. And that singular entity has decided to explore all facets of life and take on as many lessons as possible. And so fractures itself into different life forms and different ways of living. And that might be a stone on the ground. That might be a snail. That might be a fish. That might be a human person named JT. And those experiences and those life lessons then at the end of that life come back to that singular entity life force, and all of those lessons come together to form some kind of, I don't know, some cosmic greater knowing, something bigger than any of the individual pieces, but that we are all one being. I am the same being that is JT, that is Cameron, that, that is Cameron, that is the rock, that is the tree. So that is the Jinn, perhaps. Perhaps these are all
You're getting
expressions of the same.
dangerously close to Aleister Crowley's teachings.
Oh, really? I didn't know
I am
that.
the fingernail upon the finger, that is upon the hand, that is on the arm, that is up the greater body of the being.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I believe that. So
Well,
when
that's kind of the belief that my wife Rachel has. She's like, we're all God. We're all that.
expressions of God who is taking it upon itself to experience all aspects of life. So, but is when we talk about the Jinn, but that's different though. So that's on a
Well,
more,
to me, where that came up is that the Jinn is actually a Muslim belief. So it's actually a religious belief
but it
that's what these things are.
predated Islam, we think. Well, we don't know for sure, but it
We don't know
possibly
for sure.
predated Islam.
But that's what Islam says.
Yeah, it actually kind of goes in here. It does say that it was told long before Islam was around, but that the jinns were given a chance to follow Muhammad's teachings.
Mm. No, and then we have the story of Iblis, the one who chose to defy God and became their great shaitan, like their devil.
But that's all. I mean, and I haven't gone maybe as deep as you have, Cameron, on researching this topic. To me, it seems a very Muslim belief, and part of the Muslim religion that they believe in the Jinn and what and these other. I don't want to say creatures, but I want to say life forms.
Does it change anything that it's a Muslim belief? I mean, it's a Christian belief that we have the devil and that we have all of his demons.
Well, what's interesting to me is there's a lot of that belief is found in Christian religions, Mormon religions, other religions. There's it's kind of a very similar origin story of people.
Mm-hmm.
Jewish religion, and then before that, the Mesopotamia, where they had the Elen.
So it's all a very similar origin story to mankind.
Yeah. I don't, yeah. So like you had asked, when we talk about the spirit of the tree and the spirit of the snail, is that different than Jinn? I think you're asking, like, how do you know? I think that there's different types of spirits, that just like there's humans and the chimpanzees and spider monkeys and dolphins and whales and all these things, there are different species of spirits.
But
and I think Jinn is one of them.
If human can be reborn as a snail, a tree, what have you, human again, would a human be able to be reborn as a Jinn? Because the soul is something different.
Perhaps.
Interesting. That's an interesting question.
If we're all expressions of the same creator, then why not? What stops that from happening?
We've all been created from the same
spark of whatever.
God or whatever.
Yeah. If you
and
choose
then
to
the
believe in that.
inverse.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all about belief, really. I mean,
Yeah,
everything we talk about is about belief.
it is. Yeah.
Like it's my belief that if an alien invasion happens before Trump takes office, don't believe it. It's not a real alien invasion.
Project Bluebeam.
It's Project Bluebeam. Thank you.
I don't know anything about that.
You
What?
don't know about Project Bluebeam?
No,
That's
I'm
a whole different topic.
That's
I'm gonna have to
completely
look that up
different topic.
later.
Yeah. They say that that's part of what the chemtrails were. Aside from geoengineering for weather patterns, it was spraying heavy metals into the air so that you can microwave them and create holographic images.
Oh.
Yes.
And therefore, you could create a fake alien invasion.
Wow.
Yes.
For what
and
purpose?
That's how they're going to prevent
Public
Trump
control.
from taking the Oval Office
By
and create a one world government.
making
State
it
of
seem
emergency.
like aliens took over. I see.
State of emergency, martial law.
Okay. Well,
There's a guy on TikTok and Instagram, Museum of Tarot, that doesn't believe in aliens at all. He thinks it's just the government putting stories out there so they can create a fake alien invasion.
okay. Well,
And
all right. Then.
if you believe in Muslims, well, then that would be a Jinn invasion.
Oh. Okay. I mean,
if you believe in Islam, not if you believe in Muslims.
Islam. Sorry, not necessarily Muslims, but Islam.
Muslims are
believe they
mythical
exist.
creatures. I don't know if my in-laws are real or not. I don't know. Muslims.
Anyway,
Are they real? Yeah. Okay, we're gonna move on from that. That is interesting, though. That is interesting. The whole heavy metals thing and making holograms. That's man, that's very interesting.
I did see an article with Robert Kennedy Jr. He's going to stop the chemtrails.
Okay. Okay. So
don't believe in my weird conspiracy. They're not even my weird conspiracy theories. I don't believe in chemtrails, but
I would think that
I kind of do.
Project Bluebeam might be a real thing that they tried, but I believe that would have failed. It's more likely that would be used for like geoengineering than anything else.
I think it's weather. Yeah, I think it's weather shit, and I think it's weather shit. And Belief Hole did an excellent episode about this, where like the skies are like 30% more cloudier than they were even like 50 years ago or something like that.
And yet we get no rain.
And no rain.
Bastards.
It's because they're trying to like reduce the heat and trying to like reverse global warming or whatever. I don't know. And I don't know enough about it, but it was interesting, and it made me feel like, that's interesting. I wonder if that's not really a thing in Arizona.
I mean, it dates back to seeding clouds. That's been something that's been tested and proven that it can work on a small scale for a long time. So if they're trying to create more clouds, we know they can. Why the hell aren't they creating more rain, the bastards?
I don't.
Yeah, especially here in Arizona.
I
We don't
know.
need a lot more, just a little bit, just a couple
give us
inches
a
a
lot.
year is fine.
Keep the motherfucking plants alive at least.
Exactly. Like
Jesus.
the cactus still
We had
need
no
water.
monsoon season this year. That was
No.
I
pretty lame.
know.
Like
And then
that.
it turned like 35 degrees at night in like a freaking month. Like, are you kidding me?
Overnight.
It should not
It
be
was
freezing
one
yet.
night it got cold out.
God, ridiculous. They opened up Snow Bowl 2 weeks early. Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
No. This
Crazy.
is not how it goes.
Crazy.
All right.
Well, I'm just going to throw it out there to the murderers. Hey, murderers, if you have any thoughts, knowledge, anything, we have an email address. wanderingcrowpodcast@gmail.com. Nailed it right.
You got it. You got it. You did it.
And which one has the Wandering Crow in front of it?
Is that the website?
Might be.
The Wandering Crow?
Nope.
No.
Oh, it's just not.
I feel like it is
The
the
Facebook
Wandering
page.
Crow.
The Wandering Crow, yeah.
It's thewateringcrow.com, I think.
Well, it's going to be .com, but
Yeah. Oh, I need to give you all that stuff.
Yeah. So,
it is thewanderingcrow.com. We're still working on it.
Mandy has not provided some of the information needed for the poor web designer to actually do her job.
I haven't heard from her for a while either.
Okay.
I might be able to just edit some of the.
anyway, we try to say all that stuff in the beginning, but we just kind of forgot.
We
today
forgot.
'cause
Jinn is a very
Oh, I gotta edit.
It's an interesting
imposing topic. There is so much history and so many differing beliefs, and there's so much overlap. Like, it's hard. It was hard for me to even get myself organized. Like, how am I even going to talk about this subject? It's
Yeah.
crazy. And I think that we could probably divide it up further and talk about the different, like, it would be kind of cool to do an episode, the different ways that crazy people think that they can control Jinn, just as its own episode. Like,
Well,
that'd
and
be
even
cool.
if they do, they think that it's ethically okay.
Yeah.
It never even enters the question of if they should.
No, just, do I want that? It's very selfish. It's
I
very
like the
selfish.
soothsayers because that, like the guy said, he refers to it as his brother. They're
Oh.
not
Hmm.
slave and master. They are working together for whatever goal.
Well, it seems to me like you would have to have that. There has to be a benefit for both for it to work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for there to not
So
be.
you have to find the right kind, because if you have one that's kind of not very nice, he's not going to want to do nice things back.
Not gonna want to
Well,
work
or
with you.
if you're a bastard, you might want to find a bastard.
True.
I don't know.
True.
Might be a bad pairing.
You are an evil villain. Find yourself an evil villain demon.
I mean, I've read a couple more stories, and they basically sound like very similar, spirit possession stories or spirit stories on, ours. These are all like in the Middle East and in the other continents, other areas that are getting these stories, and they sound very familiar to stories here of ghost stories, different types of ghosts, different experiences that you have, different things that they do, and it would make a lot more sense to me, and this just makes sense to me, not that it's true or anything, that when you have a spirit that can open and close doors, turn lights on and off, that would be more of a Jinn that has more access to this world than I would say a spirit would. I don't know.
I don't know.
Not
I mean,
that that's true or not true. It's just
that's interesting because, what does a poltergeist do? The noisy spirit. A poltergeist is like the next level of like spirit, right? Because they can physically do those things and they make
Right.
those noises. And it does make me feel like poltergeist might be the German equivalent to Jinn, maybe in some ways.
And a skinwalker would be the Native American version of a Jinn that can shapeshift.
I don't know.
I know that's going to be different, but that's according to the Muslim belief. That's what they
according to Muslim. But how
would be.
much do they know about what a skinwalker truly is? Because skinwalkers are human witches.
Skinwalker is pretty specific because that's I would say that a skinwalker might be something people. It might be mistaken, like a case of mistaken identity.
Yeah.
A lot of things that we call skinwalkers might actually just be Jinn.
That's fair. That's fair. But
that's kind of where I was going.
A true skinwalker, an actual skinwalker, was human once,
right?
And in some ways is still human. I do not think that a true skinwalker is an example of a Jinn that we're just missing. You know what I mean? Like, that is something different entirely.
Unless Skinwalker Ranch is probably a bunch of Jinns, though.
I mean,
could be.
I'm inclined to be okay with that.
Or a skinwalker could be a Jinn possessing a human.
Maybe there's a partnership there.
There could be a partnership there
with that kind of spirit,
because there are Jinn, according to this, that can travel the speed of light.
Oh yeah, I did see that. The Ifrits.
Yeah, the Ifrits can travel at the speed of light. So different Jinn can do different things.
You know what was very interesting, and I don't remember which book it was I was reading that I read this in, but Jinn will take different forms when they're interacting and they're in this world interacting with things. But when they do so, they take on the weaknesses of that form. So, for example, if a Jinn changes shape and becomes a fish, if it's pulled onto the shore and separated from the water, it will suffocate. Or if it comes in the form of a human man, it could be shot and could be killed with the same weaknesses as a human man or dog or cat or whatever. So when a Jinn does take a form of some kind, it does so only for a very, very short period of time, because in that moment it is extremely vulnerable to being killed. It is at its weakest point.
That's really going to make me think twice about the next time I go fishing and I catch a fish and then eat it.
Well, you've killed the Jinn. It can't get you after that, unless its
That's
family
true.
comes after you. In which
That's
case,
true.
yeah,
That's
you're in
true.
trouble.
Yeah, I wouldn't want that.
No. All right.
Wouldn't want that.
Well. All
Does
right.
anybody have anything else on that topic?
It's a very large topic. I have something interesting.
Okay.
Pre-Islamic poet Tabata Sharan once wrote about sleeping with a jinya, or female form of a jinn. The poem is called How I Met the Ghoul. I lay upon her through the night, that in the morning I might see what had come to me. Behold, 2 eyes and hideous head, like the head of a cat's split tongue. Legs like deformed fetus, the back of a dog. Clothes of haircloth and worn-out skins. And that's the end. It's beautiful.
Did he not
Wow.
like get a sense of that as he was feeling her up in the
Right?
night?
And you had sex with that?
He just went to town. He didn't care.
That's one horny person.
Yeah, man. He needs to meet more ladies. Or maybe not. Maybe that's just his type. Maybe he was into
I
it.
guess. I don't know.
Maybe that's why he's single.
Maybe.
He
What's
can't
funny
find the right woman.
is I wonder if you can like tie that into the sleep hag somehow. Like, how long ago was that written? Like, maybe it was like the reverse. Like, the sleep hag tried to get him, but he was into it. So he didn't have the sleep paralysis. Instead, he had the best night of his life.
Well, yeah, he lay upon her throughout the night.
Yeah. He was like, yeah, mama, let's do this.
I don't remember. I don't have the story in front of me, but one of the stories that I read, maybe it was the story that yeah. So the story that I read, the guy that the two boys that went out and saw the spirit or heard this roar or whatever, I think the guy actually saw a dark female figure in his room at night sometimes.
Oh.
And he would have feeling like something was sitting on his chest.
So Janaya came in. Yeah.
So that was quote unquote a Jinn that they disturbed, and that's what was kind of possessing the house after that.
Well, oh my gosh, there were so many things. Like, I had found the Turkish thing about the evil eye, and then we got distracted and then didn't talk about it. And then there's this other story. God, I feel like I want to talk about the evil eye. But so it's said that Jinn are like literally everywhere, right? We talked about that. They're just invisible. They're constantly present. So like there's things that you can do that would accidentally offend it. Like you could accidentally pee on a Jinn, and that would greatly offend it and cause you to like get into a serious amount of trouble. So like before you go pee out in the wilderness, there's certain things that you have to do to like protect yourself.
To give a dastur, which is like
a
permission for whatever action you're about to take.
Bismillah, yeah, before performing the function. And it's like, it says this applies even when urinating in an outdoor latrine. It's like something that you have to do to like protect yourself. Like, hey, I'm about to do this. Just everybody knows what I'm about to do.
There are Jinn that supposedly eat bones and eat poop.
Oh.
And they live in bathrooms.
Oh. Wow.
There's one that eats the intestines.
Ooh.
Yeah, fillings and all.
Well, Turkish do that. Have you ever heard of what they call it? What the heck? Kokoreçi. Kokoreçi is a Turkish delicacy, and it's intestines that's been seasoned with spices and things.
It's been cleaned, though, hasn't it?
Yeah.
I assume. That doesn't make it better to me. My husband loves it.
Does.
Sausage is intestine.
Look, I don't need to know.
Have you ever had haggis? I've had haggis,
yes.
and it's
and I will not.
Haggis.
I will not.
It's delicious.
Thank you. Anyway,
it's all right.
Then what was the thing I was gonna say? So, well, he talks about interestingly about the Anatolians and the Turks as two different peoples, which is weird to me because Talat does not speak of them that way. But he says the migration of the Turks into Asia Minor brought nomadic and semi-nomadic families, clans, and tribes out of the very wilderness and into settled society. The Turks brought with them great defenses against Jinn that must have given some comfort to the indigenous Anatolians and other peoples of Asia Minor. For one thing, the traditional national and cultural symbol of the Turks was the wolf, the mortal enemy of the Jinn. This is true. The wolf is a really important. Yep, the wolf. There's actually, Talat has told me there's a lot of stuff about indigenous Turkish culture, which is the same as indigenous uh, Native American culture. That there's certain symbols and different belief systems that to him, it like blows his mind.
Kind of the same thing.
Yeah. So other important Turkish cultural symbols were the color blue, iron, and fire. The blue mineral turquoise, which literally means Turkish in French, I did not know that.
Wow.
I did not know that. Was used in Turkish jewelry and was a protection against the Jinn-inspired evil eye. Iron was, of course, anathema to Jinn. Fire, at least of the smokeless variety, was part of the very nature of Jinn, but blazing campfires and torches kept all manner of evil night creatures at bay, including Jinn. And then they talk about how Turkish Jinn are also shapeshifters, etc., etc. And in Turkey, as with most Jinn beliefs across the world, a good Jinn may appear strikingly handsome or beautiful, and evil Jinn are hideously ugly. And there's still, like, according to this author, this has not been my experience in Turkey, however, I don't speak the language, so it's not exactly like I was speaking to any of the people directly. So if any of this conversation was happening, it would have been edited as it was translated to me. Jinn are found everywhere in present-day Turkey, especially in rural areas, where locals warn visitors about Jinn-related threats against those who venture into the countryside. And this is where we talk about, like, even pouring water on the ground or going pee somewhere, you could get into a lot of trouble because you might accidentally be offending a Jinn who's in the wilderness minding its own business. But anyway, those are some of the protections that the Turkish people had against Jinns. And I don't remember why I brought that up. I'm sorry, but I really wanted to talk about that.
No, I mean that's important because the protection from Jinn is there's things that, I mean, there's certain Muslim prayers you can recite.
Mm-hmm.
The Ayat Kursi, Kursi, Kursi.
Kursi? I don't know.
Or there's surahs, or other, I guess surahs is a word for prayer. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
You can always invoke the name of God, whatever, to get them to go away or back off or whatever.
Do you want to hear this story? Is the forward for this book about the legends of fire spirits, and it's about a Jinn and getting rid of it. You want to read it, or do you want me to read it? It's a few pages, but it's pretty good. So this guy,
we can end on this.
Yeah, I think we could end on this. This guy, and what's his name? It's not one that is easy for me. His name is Tahir Shah. He wrote the foreword to this book for this guy. He says, 5 years ago, I moved from a cramped London flat into a sprawling Moroccan mansion set squarely in the middle of a Casablanca shantytown. Looking back, it was a relocation touched by lunacy, but it was all the more unwise because the house was said to be infested with Jinn. And in the Muslim world, in Islam, abandoned homes are a favorite place for Jinn to want to live. And this home had been abandoned for some time. So from the first moment that we crossed the threshold, I realized that I was way out of my depth. The house had been empty for almost a decade. Whereas in the West, an empty home might appeal to squatters, in the East, there's a different kind of danger. The unlawful occupants of our new home were not human, but superhuman. The guardians, who came with the house as if through some medieval right sale, warned us from the outset that there was extreme danger all around. When I declared that we would be moving into the house right away to supervise the renovations, they laughed nervously until they realized I was serious. Terrified, contorted expressions then swept across their faces, and they begged us to leave. The Jinn would not take kindly to intruders, they told me. For in the years that the house had been empty, it had become their home. Dare to trespass, and they might kill us, the leader of the Guardians declared. Irritated, yet willing to go along for the sake of respecting local sensitivities, I asked what to do. The chief guardian, whose name was Osman, swept out his arms wide and yelled, "You must hold an exorcism." He says, in London, I wouldn't have had any idea where to find an exorcist, but in Morocco, that's very different. It may be perched in Africa's northwest corner, just 8 miles from the gates of Europe, but in many ways it is the deepest, darkest Orient. This is about Morocco. I asked around and very soon found myself in the old imperial city of Meknes. According to all my informants, it was the center of exorcists, and they were right. A few minutes after my arrival, I was offered dozens of exorcists from the Aisawa Brotherhood. I negotiated a price for 20, and the exorcist dealer threw in a further 4 of them for free. The only catch was that I obliged to pay in advance. A day or so later, I arrived home and was greeted by a guardian's long looks. The Jinn were already exacting their revenge, they told me. A dead cat had been found in the garden with its head cut off. A tree had fallen in the wind and broken a window. The maid hired to look after a little baby had run off screaming for no reason at all. I held out a hand at arm's length and whispered confidently, "The exorcists are coming." The guardians perked up. They asked when exactly the visitors would arrive, and I shrugged. "They'll come when they're ready," I said. My wife said that I was mad to have handed over wads of money to exorcists I didn't know. She said that she could hear them all the way in Meknes howling with laughter. A day passed, then another. I kicked myself for having been so ingenuous as to pay in advance, but then at that moment I heard the wild, whooping sound of men in high spirits against a backdrop of grinding noise. A huge cement truck inched its way down our lane. On the back were riding the exorcists, as if on some infernal chariot. I pointed at them and grinned, and the guardians grinned too. Through days and nights, the exorcists wreaked their terrible work. They slaughtered and skinned a goat at what they said was the heart of the house. As the person obliged to purchase the animal, I found myself naturally interested in how its execution would feature in the cleansing of my home of supernatural elements. When stripped of its skin, the carcass was beheaded, and its gallbladder was swallowed by one of the exorcists. The other slid open its belly and rifled through the organs, which gleamed like jewels in the candlelight. One of the group poured milk in all corners of the house, and another did the same with blood. Drums beat, and high-pitched homemade oboes wailed. The drumming became faster and faster as the night wore on, and as it did so, the exorcists stepped into another plane, a kind of twilight zone of their own imagination. They cut their wrists with knives and drank their own blood, and then collapsed on the ground in trance. Yet more exorcists massed in a dark camp room at the far end of the house. They barricaded themselves inside, killed chickens, and drank more blood. And all the while the drums beat and the oboe shrieked out. I wondered whether the walls would tumble down as they had done in Jericho. I whispered sternly to the leader of the exorcists that they could leave. He laughed, a wild, hearty laugh, and I swear his eyes flashed red with fire. He would quit our home, he said, only when the Jinn had been sucked out of the walls and swallowed. I explained that my wife was growing impatient and that she was uncomfortable at having the walls and floor strewn with freshly purged blood. The leader of the exorcists caught my glance in his. Widening his eyes in the most terrifying manner, he told me that he had never been in a house so consumed with evil spirits. Then he asked for more money and for another goat. The next day, after brokering a deal which involved a handful of crisp 100 dirham notes, the exorcists clambered aboard the cement truck. They rolled back down the lane and through the shanty town to the open road. My wife gave me one of those looks that instilled pure fear. She scared him more than anything else. That's funny. I bragged out loud that the house was now squeaky clean, that the last thing we ever needed to worry about again was the prospect of being tormented by Jinn. That was all 6 years ago. In the weeks and months since, I have found myself living in a country where the belief in these normally invisible spirits is complete and unshakable. Jinn are described in the Quran and are a part of life for all God-fearing Muslims in Morocco and across the Islamic world. And it goes on for a little bit more, talking about the origins of Jinn. But that was a very intense story about what it took to kick these Jinn out of this house that they wanted to move into.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I wanted to share that because it's...
I don't ever want to have to skin a goat.
No. Oh, do you know that there is a holiday here? And like, the holiday's fine. It's not the holiday's fault. But the tradition is that you get like, you eat lamb as like part of the holiday dinner. But like the thing is it's like a freshly killed lamb. And then like one day when we were in Turkey, and we were like celebrating this holiday, and I don't want to say what holiday it is because it's not the holiday's fault. This is just like the cultural thing, and I'm just not part of the culture, and it was really hard for me. I saw them dragging the body down into the basement, and then like they're like, hold on, we gotta go butcher this thing. And then they went downstairs and then they butchered it, and then they brought up a plate full of meat, and then I was just like supposed to eat the meat, and I thought it would be fine because I eat meat all the time and it's totally fine when I get it from the grocery store, but it wasn't fine. I was not okay. This poor thing was butchered in the basement and I couldn't eat it.
Just imagine putting that in your mouth and just hearing, meh.
I know.
Meh.
It was so sad, and its tiny little legs. Oh. And my husband was like, oh, don't worry. It takes some people like that. It's okay. Don't worry. And some of the family laughed at me a little bit, and I understood because I do eat meat. I get it.
Yeah.
That was a pretty pansy American thing of me, but man.
But as a goat, we don't regularly eat goats.
Yeah, but even if it had been a baby cow, I think I probably would have reacted the same.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have mattered.
I guess you're right. I don't ever meet the cows that I eat.
So. That had nothing to do with the story, but no. I don't want to be there for the butchering of any goats.
The butchering of a goat had to do with the story.
Yeah,
so.
I was sort of present for that, and I didn't want to be.
Well, it wasn't alive when they were dragging it by, was it?
I don't think so. I think it was already dead, freshly dead, but it was dead. Even still, it messed with my brain, and I couldn't eat.
I mean, at least it wasn't kicking and screaming when they brought it down there.
Yeah, it was not. So yeah, it was probably dead.
Anyway.
Unless it just trusted them that much.
Mm.
Well, that was a good topic. I liked it. It was interesting.
Nothing like, what was it? Stan from American Family. Oh, man, you can really taste that betrayal.
Okay. All right. Well, Jinn, that was disorganized, but good.
Yeah.
I learned more. Yet again, I learned a lot
more. A little
more
organized than our last one. So.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. The other one turned out pretty good, I felt like.
It did. It did.
It was good.
It was good.
I think that there's a lot more to learn about
to
Jinn.
Revisit this. Yes.
Yeah. I feel like we should each continue reading and doing more research and getting ourselves more organized, and maybe we can present it in a better way again.
And like you said, trying to find some correspondence between the different
that would be
cultures.
very cool. I'd like to do that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're an hour and 43 minutes in at this point.
Yep.
All right, murderers. Well, thank you for joining us for this episode about Jinn and Genie and other demon type things. I hope you enjoyed. We will see you next time on The Wandering
Crow.
Woohoo, we did it. All right.